Welcome Dr. Aisha Shah. She will be joining us today and speaking about her journey to medicine. She'll also have a Q&A section because we know a lot of you guys have amazing questions that she will be able to answer, but I'll pass the torch over to her and she get started. Welcome Dr. Aisha Shah.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me properly? Just need to know because.
Yeah, the sound is amazing.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for spending your morning with me. I know how this journey can be so long and seems to be like never ending because you just keep getting things right and left. So I'm happy to help in any way I can. I'm just gonna share my journey and then I'm gonna open up the floor to all the questions. I have really bad imposter syndrome, and everyone will too. So just want to correct that I'm still a student doctor. 2 years, 2 years. I have 2 years left for a doctor, and I cannot wait to be done. It's like even when I'm about to start my rotations, I'm technically a third year now. I just finished my boards, and so you guys can ask me questions about anything. So depending on that, I'll try to help you guys. But like I just had my hospital orientation, and even over there, we all were dressed as doctors, and that just it's like we get so much consumed in in this journey that we don't even remember like what we are here for. So I'm gonna share my journey and then I'm gonna open up to the questions and then we'll go ahead from there.
Just a reminder, I know some people are having their hands raised. We'll keep questions to the end of her speaker session, just so we have it organized.
I don't have a question. I need her to speak slower, please.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yes. Can you guys hear me clearly? Okay. I'm sorry about that. I'll make sure. I'm gonna try to share my screen. Okay. So everyone, this is me, and I am an osteopathic student. So I go to med school at Alabama College of Osteopathic Medicine. So I'm gonna start. I was born and raised in India. If anyone knows where Gujarat is, I was born over there. I was raised over there. After I finished my high school, I started applying to universities over here. And then I moved here to University of South Florida in Tampa. I did a 4-year biomedical sciences. I was super involved on campus. My friends used to make fun of me that like anything that's going on campus, like Aisha would be involved over there. I had this thing that I would apply for everything that I'm interested in. And then if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't work out, then maybe it's not meant to be. So I had this, and I honestly think that was the best part of my 4-year journey because I got to experience so much, especially coming from India. Like I did not know how undergrad in America works. So I got involved with public health, with psychology, with business aspect of medicine. And I really think that those 4 years opened me up to like different experiences. So after those 4 years, right after those 4 years, I started studying for my MCAT. And we all know that MCAT is no joke. I think that was even harder to get through than my boards. So for my MCAT, I started studying for my MCAT after my graduation. And right then the COVID happened. So everything got slowed down. My MCAT was not like taken for such a long time. So by the time I could take my MCAT, I was happy with my score. My application was done. I was technically in 2 gap years, which was totally fine. But like at first, I was not ready for it because I wanted it to be back to back. But now looking back, I think my journey I was very happy with how it ended because I had so much clinical experience, which I might not have got if I didn't have 2 gap years. Because to even have campus involvements and being during the undergrad and also clinical, everything gets very hard because you also have to focus on your academics. So if you want more clinical experience and focus on your MCAT, I definitely recommend taking gap years. So during my gap year, I used to work as a scribe at Tampa General Health, which is in Tampa downtown. And I worked over there for like almost, I think, 7, 8 months. And then I was free. I was done with my MCAT at that time. And I had this thing in me that I'm like, I want to be more financially stable. So I started applying to more jobs. And then I started working as an epidemiologist at Florida Department of Health, and I worked there for 1.5 years. So after working over there, I got exposed to the public health part and the clinical part, and I genuinely could not be more happier because the FDOH helped me to write so many recommendation letters for my med school, and med school really likes to see that how you are as a person, not just in medicine, like even outside, like what other qualities you have. So that's why they recommend that you should not always get just an MD letter or like just your professor. There should be someone else who knows you as a person and not you. Like you should always have one letter who knows you as a person and not as a student. And because that just shows how you are and how what kind of physician you will be in the future. And after that, I moved to Alabama for my med school, which is Alabama College of Osteopathic Medicine. And we live in this small peanut town. It's the peanut capital of the world. And I love to share that with everyone because they have peanut statues all around the city. And this one, the one that I have in the picture and on my slide, is actually the one outside the library. So just a cute little peanut we have everywhere going around. Okay. Okay, so not sure where everyone is in their journey, if you're close to being done, if you are just starting your pre-med journey, but this is just something these are just some advices that I thought for myself, like what I would tell myself if I had to go back or like if I could see my younger self. So the biggest thing was apply on time. Like people say that it makes a huge difference, and I actually think it makes a huge difference because I know few people who applied late, and I know how I applied, and there were people who applied even before me. And it's just the way you get the interviews because they take the interviews in batch. So depending on the school, but most of the schools take interviews in batch. So you always want to be on time at least, and like make sure you tell everyone to read your personal statement. Make sure like you just don't like let it run through the autocorrect, because sometimes I know that my dean mentioned how um they canceled someone's interview because the spelling was wrong. Instead of was, it said saw. So the autocorrect won't pick that. However, it's still a wrong word. And it's very easy to get lost in, when you're reading it again and again, especially with secondaries and everything, it's so easy to get lost in it. So like make sure you take a break, come back to your application, make sure you tell like other people to read it, only show it to the people who you actually trust and whose advice you actually trust. You don't need to show applications to everybody, getting all the opinions, because more opinions you get, more confused you might get. But like, if you know that this person, even though even though he or she gives you a harsh advice, if that person is going to give you a correct advice, take that advice. Like, be open to all the constructive advice. Sorry? I think someone's mic is on.
Keeping questions till the end.
Okay, sorry. So make sure like you take all the advice as a constructive advice, because at the end that will make you a better applicant. Like if someone said something, just ignore and move ahead, not a big deal. Please prepare. Please do not be overconfident. I have had so many friends that they're like, oh, I'm such a good talker, I'll be fine during the interviews. Just do it. Like you have worked so hard. You don't want to come this close and, not prepare or think that you know it and not like, perfect yourself. Like have good set of friends that like you can go and like just talk to, and then you can just ask them that please ask me interview questions, and just like, talk to them as if like you're talking your interview stuff, because it will like help. You don't want to memorize your answers, because many schools are going to have similar questions, but you do not want to memorize the answers. They can tell when you're talking and when you're like interviewing you, when you have the script on. And I used to interview people for Dean's Society in USF, and that's literally how we used to like cancel or take people in. It's like the way they present themselves. They already like you on paper. Like I'm sure if you guys are close to application cycle, Like, I'm sure so many people have told you that if you get the interview, they like you on paper. They just want to see how you are as a person. So please don't just spend time in like telling how you are as a student. Show them how you are as a person. Show them what you like to do outside the field of medicine. Show them what your interests are, like what you truly advocate about outside the world of medicine. Because let's be honest, like, yeah, right now, all you're thinking about is how to get through classes, how to, be in med school. Like, the dream is to get in med school. Once you get in med school, you are there. Like, this is where you wanted to be. This is what you have been working for. So after this, it's all going to be like, okay, now what kind of person you want to be, what kind of physician you want to be. It's going to be like time to, actually be the person you have been trying to work for. So show them that, what kind of person you are and what kind of physician you want to be. Please do not just talk about like, yourself as a student, because they have so many of those and they want to see you as a person. Clinical experience is important. Think like a doctor and have the mindset of a physician if you want to be. Like, one of my questions for the interview was, if your friend is cheating on an exam, how would you, like, what would your next step be? Would you report it, or would you just, tell your friend that, or would you help your friend out? Like, of course, they would like give you different scenarios. And I think this was my winning answer to get that acceptance. And my answer was, oh, definitely not. I would talk to my friend, tell them that they should actually now work on this, because we are working towards the physician we want to be. Like, it's not going to be like, graduation and then, okay, now I'm a doctor. Like, it's the process, it's the journey that makes you the physician you want to be. So please have that mindset. Think like a doctor. Know that you all will be fine. Like, don't let one one obstacle stop you from anything. I remember I had so many times that like, journey, I was like debating if I want to do this, not do this. Just push through. Just keep going. Remember, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, so I'm gonna get to application specific tips now. So for each school, remember to read their mission statement and research everything about the school. I remember I used to like go on their Instagram and see what the student community did. And I would make sure I make points on that. So during the interview, I will talk about that. Yeah, I saw that, students of your school did this, this, this. And I would love to be a part of the community and be surrounded by students who do, you know, health clinics. Because during my time, it was COVID, so it was all online. Everyone was trying to like, help the community out. So during my interview, I would mention about like how I want to be surrounded by student leaders who would make a difference in the community by doing this, 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 depending on whatever the school did. So definitely research everything about the school and read the mission statement. And it doesn't have to be that, everything that the mission statement has that is aligned with you, but whatever is aligned with you, you want to mention it in the interview. Like, what about you as a person? It would be like, would highlight if you go to that school. And for that, you have to read the mission statement. Interview tips. I said it, show who you are as a person, not as a medical student or pre-med student. They want to see you outside the student version. So what you like to do for fun. I remember they asked me like what is my self-care day, or like how I like to take self-care, because especially like in med school, it is a very, like, even though you might have your friends, there is a high chance like it's a very lonely journey, because you are the only one going through it. Nobody in your family or like friends outside medicine might understand that. So it can get lonely. And so they like, at least that's how they kept it for me. And they asked me questions like, how would you cope with the stress when you're by yourself? So it is a very common thing that people go through. And that's why you should have a self-care even before you start med school. And you should mention that, because I promise you they will ask you that in your interview. For standardized testing test, which is the grade MCAT, I do not like MCAT. It was literally like my nightmare. I got through because I remember how many breakdowns I had. And I do not even want to think about it because I know how hard it is. But again, I'm here. You guys will make it through. You just gotta keep pushing. Like, I was just telling Ahmad like right before this, like, this entire process is just to like weed people out slow by slow. And you just have to prove it to them and prove it to yourself that your goal is strong enough that you will not let anyone weed you out. Okay, one more problem. Okay, fine, I'll study again and do it again. Oh, you want me to do this now? Okay, I'll do that again. Like, remember, I was a COVID student, so I literally had my MCAT signed up. They made me cancel it. Then they wouldn't let me rebook it for the longest time, which I understand. And then I had to like take it. So I know, and more than anything, I feel like this is financially and mentally very hard, but push through. You will make it through. Just keep pushing, keep telling yourself that like this is your goal that you have been working for so long. So one small thing or few small things is not gonna let you, stop. So keep pushing. Um, I was thinking of like the resources I used for MCAT and what I really liked. So it would be Khan Academy, UWorld, AMC, Cars Passages. I don't know if anyone knows about Jack Weston Cars Passages. Like you can literally sign up and you can do one Cars Passage a day. And if I did not do that, but if I could go back, I would definitely do that. Or I can definitely recommend you guys because my cars was the lowest section. Growing up in India, my sciences and my math and chem phys was strong. My psych was also strong. My bio was strong, but vocab was one thing. Cars was one thing that was really weak for me. So I would just keep avoiding it. I'm like, "Ugh, I don't want to do that. I'll keep, working on other sections." But then they really look at how uniform your score is. And for me, that was not the case. But again, even if that was not the case, you can make it. So that's just example that don't let one thing stop you from anything. And I don't know if you guys know, but there was a high yield content quick sheets from Kaplan. It's just a quick, I think, 16-page, and everything is like just concise in there. And I remember reading that like the night before and the morning of the exam, because I'm someone who needs to like study till the last moment. So I did those, definitely helpful. Watch everything on Khan Academy, super helpful, and do practice questions. For me personally, like practice questions is the key because I am good with again, you know yourself the best, but like for me, doing questions, because it's all about like, even if you know the content, if you don't know how to answer the questions, it's not gonna help. So you have to know how to answer the questions, and practice is the only key for that. So you gotta do questions. I remember AMC had a lot of questions. It's been a while since I took MCAT, so I don't remember everything, but I'm pretty sure AMC either has like practice exams or practice questions, and use everything because that's literally coming from the people who makes this exam. So you want to use that. And for extra exams, I used Next Step, and which was like Next Step Blueprint. And I remember doing one exam for Kaplan. Another thing is like stamina is the key. So you also want to take practice exams as like, make sure you tell yourself, like once you're just studying for MCAT, take one MCAT practice exam every week. It's like, even if you don't get it right, it's fine. Like just go through the entire thing of like sitting for 7 hours or maybe 8 hours. I think it's 8 hours now, but just sitting through the entire exam, because I remember even for my boards, like by the time I'm on my 7th hour, your brain is tired and you need to trust your muscle memory to make sure that you're actually answering the right questions. So the only way to get through that is to do more questions. And I used to do 40 question blocks at least 2 times a day, one in the morning, then study during the day, and then do again at night or like in the evening. So whatever helps you, you know how you like to study, but do questions, and I promise that will help you a lot. Okay, so day in my life for, I think, on my last, okay, I have two more slides, and then I'll open up to questions, I promise. So I love routines. I was never the person who used to wake up super early in the morning. I used to wake up when I like to wake up, and this was me in undergrad, and I would sleep. I used to like studying at night because I like, at least in undergrad I could go to the library and do this and that and like study with friends. Once you get to med school, it's no joke. Like, I don't think if I studied like this in undergrad, my life would be so different. I love routines to a point that I wake up in the morning every single day, 6 a.m., 5:30. Some days it's 5:30, some days it's 6. 6:30 is my latest. I'm up by 6:30. Then I start like, I don't know if anyone knows about Anki. I used it during pre like as a pre-med, but I use it more now in med school. But like I start my mornings with Anki. I do like almost 100, 200 cards. And then I have my lectures from around 9 to 12. All our lectures are not mandatory, so it really helps, like, when you choose a school that like doesn't have mandatory classes. We do have mandatory classes like at least once a day or like every other day, so we just like go accordingly. But like my schedule, like at least from my school, is pretty lenient, I would say, for the most part. So I would do my Anki in the morning, then I would like take have a breakfast, then I would do some kind of a workout. I never used to be a person who would prioritize physical health, because I'll be like, oh, I have so much studying to do. I have so much this to do. But there was a time in med school, I think my second semester, it just got so hard. I could not study. I feel like I was not efficient in any way. So I had to, like, after that summer break, I just had to be more efficient with how I am with my time. So I started doing some physical workout every day. It can be a morning walk for 30, 40 minutes. Sorry. It can be a morning walk for 30, 40 minutes, or I would go for Pilates, I would go for yoga, just something or the other, at least like having some kind of physical routine or workout during the day. It does not have to be something very fast or like something time consuming. It can be anything just to get yourself outside of your studying space, and just, for your brain to clear up, because burnout is very real and you have to do everything to prevent that burnout. I have at least one day off a week. I pick that day depending on how much studying I have got. Usually it can be like, the day of exam, I won't study anything. Like once you get to med school, we literally have exams every 2 weeks. So one exam every 14 days. And in between, we keep having quizzes, like classes, like other like practical stuff. So, but like the day I have huge exams, that evening I have to take off. There's no questions asked. How I study in med school is, so we get lectures from the school, and then I would look up like that same content on different platforms, like Boards and Beyond. Like, so for you guys, it's like Khan Academy. I would just search up YouTube and be like, YouTube, like if I have some gallbladder, then I would put that and then med school, or that and USMLE. And then I would just watch different videos, because for me, it really helps when I hear different people talking about the same content, because you can also hear like, what different ways people like to think, people like to ask questions. So I would do that. And after at least getting through all the information once or twice, then I would read the lectures. So it's not like when I read the lectures or when I watch my professor's lectures, it's not like I'm doing that for the first time. I expose myself to something before I actually come to my actual lecture content. And some of the resources, not sure if you guys would know, because I totally forgot that you all are pre-meds. But if these are just some of my favorite resources that I use in med school: Boards and Beyond, Sketchy, and Med School Bootcamp. They literally saved my life, and that's literally how I got through my boards. Um, Going through another part of my day in my life would be, I do what, like, you have to study regardless. Do what you like though. Like I love going to coffee shops. So you will always find me at a coffee shop near my school, and I will study. Like I can study for 6 hours straight if I'm at a nice place and seeing other people also studying. Because like I live in a small town where everyone, like there's only two coffee shops. So everyone is over there, and I genuinely enjoy seeing other people studying, so I know that I'm not the only one. So I will do that. Like, you have to study regardless. Just, do it in the environment you like. Like, not any inappropriate environments, but like, do, like, I know some people go to Panera Bread, some people go to some, like, breweries. I don't know. Some people do that. And then I go to coffee shops. Just do whatever you like. You have to study regardless. So how to cope with stress from pre-med to med school. Make time for what is important to you, friends, family, whatever. Whatever is important to you, make time for them. You're always gonna not have time. You're always gonna feel like, oh, I still have more studying to do. Studying never stops. Like, especially in our field, the field that we are in, studying literally never stops. So just like make time for what's important for you. If you want to FaceTime your friends and family, do that. Like, make sure you have that like at least once a day, twice a day. I don't remember any day that I've not talked FaceTime my parents before, like throughout the day. And that's fine. Like some people, like some of my friends, they just like to put themselves in a hole and not communicate with the outside world. For me, that's important. So I make time for that. So it's totally okay. Try to have a creative outlet. So in my school, we had this assignment where they wanted us to just like they wanted us to like either draw something or write a poem, and that was actually a grade. And I was just like telling my friends, I'm like, this is so time consuming, it's so not worth it. Like, if you really want me to have like, like if you would really want me to take a break from studying, just don't give me an assignment and I can just sleep and not do anything. But then after having that assignment, I realized like I have pushed my creative side down because I have been so occupied in studying. And after that, I started like just vlogging my journey because that was creative outlet for me. And then now I literally vlog like my entire day in my lives, like every single day. And that's purely for fun. And secondly, because my parents love to see what I'm doing throughout the day. And I have no energy by the time I talk to them. So this is also a way for them to like see what I do entire day. So just have a creative outlet, like whatever makes you happy. If it makes you happy to like at least go once a week to the beach, go do that. If you like to cook, cook. Like, it's okay if it's time consuming. Some people think that, oh, why do you like, I love to cook. And some my friends, they're just like, Isha, I don't know how you have so much time to cook. No, I don't have time. I make time and it's okay because that's important to me. So make it like make time for whatever's important to you. I already mentioned any form of physical activity, very important. It doesn't have to be time consuming. You just need to get out of your studying zone and walk and get your brain, just like let your brain take a break. You might think that you don't need a break, but your brain definitely needs a break. And I started doing that and I realized like how much better I got, like how efficient I got like with studying after that. And after that, it literally became a routine that if I don't take a walk like early in the morning, I would not be able to start my day because I feel so good when I can feel the natural breeze or like just being around the trees and let like I can breathe so much better. I can feel so much better the day I take a walk. So once you do it like for a few days, you will see a change in yourself. And after that, you would want to do it regardless of like, it's not even with the stress after that. It's just like something you enjoy and you should continue whatever you enjoy. You know yourself the best, take a break when you need it. Even though I know that we all are in this journey and as much as I say that, you should take one evening off, I know it's not as easy as we say it. So sometimes there have been many times, and I've been guilty of it, that, I say that, oh, you should take at least one day off, and I don't take it because I'm so overwhelmed with the amount of work that we have. Like, we literally have 30 lectures every 2 weeks, and those 30 lectures, we will have exam like once every 2 weeks. So it's like, and as soon as I'm done, like, so let's assume that I'm done with my exam on Monday. Monday evening, I already will have a lecture to finish. And then by the time I'm like on Wednesday, I'm already like 7 lectures behind. So even though I say that take a day off, I know it's very easy to not do it, but you know yourself. The moment you think you need a break, take a break. Because if you are sick or if you cannot function, like this is like a marathon, like you got to train for the long run. One day or like one breakdown, that was my next point. One C or one fail is not going to stop you from anything. Just like be nice to yourself, be nice to your brain, be nice to your body. Take a day off, take the time off when you know you need that. because you can still achieve your goals even with this small hurdles. It's not the end of the world. And hard
Please,
work,
can I ask something?
sorry?
I'm sorry. You can
Can I
continue.
ask?
Again, we're keeping questions to the end. Almost
Sorry,
there.
just have one last point and then we can jump to questions. And if I could give one advice, hard work and consistency is the key. You don't have to be super smart or even smart to get in med school. You have to work hard. Literally, hard work and consistency is the key. Do not give up. Like, keep pushing. I have said that so many times, but like coming from someone who went through the entire pre-med, like entire journey, just keep pushing because hard work and consistency is the key. So I wish that this helped you guys, but now I'm gonna open it to questions, so then I can help you guys even more.
Thank you. I was noting some questions people were putting in the chat. So
Yeah.
one person, I'll just give you as I go. But one person is asking, Mina is asking that they're wanting to start getting experience, clinical experience at a young age. How do you navigate that? How did you navigate that?
So I did scribing. I applied like the moment I knew that I was ready for med school, or I wanted to get clinical experiences, I applied to all the scribe positions I could find in my area. That was one. I also applied to, I did care navigator in Tampa. Like, I don't know if that, I never even heard of that before. All I did was like, I would go to the emergency room and like, I used to work in the emergency room and I would go check in on the patient once the doctor was done with everything and just to ask if they need any help with making follow-up appointments with their primary care. Because after the emergency room, like they go home, but after a week or two, they have to follow up with some physicians. All I did was that. So I would literally Google search for all this stuff. Google is your best friend. Apply for every single thing you find. That's the only way. You don't have to be like, oh, I would only work for scribe in this hospital or else I won't work. Please do not be picky. At the end, like the med school or like as an applicant, they don't see where you worked. They just see that you did something. They don't care like if it was the best hospital or if it was a small clinic. All they want is that you did something and you put yourself out there. So apply for every single thing you can. If you have some family, like doctors in your family, you can reach out to them. Like, do not take it in a wrong, like having family and having physicians in your family, take that to your advantage. Like talk to them, share your goals with them, tell them like even if they cannot help you directly, they can guide you to someone else who can help you out. So definitely take full use of that. If your parents, if your uncle, if your siblings, like anyone who's a physician, I would definitely recommend like just talking to them and letting them help you, because at this like connections definitely help, networking definitely helps. So I would say talk to any physicians in your family that you know of, apply for everything you find on Google, talk to your seniors, like whoever goes to med school in your area and you know that they went to same undergrad, ask them where they were, because even if that position, like let's imagine when I got done and I know that one of my mentees is looking for a job, that position might not be open on Google, but I can talk to the physician to ask if this mentee can, come and shadow her or like can scribe for her, because and I can vouch for her or him. And that can really open a lot of gates. So networking is definitely the key, especially if you want to get exposure at an early age. Networking is a key. I did a lot of shadowing, which I totally forgot to mention. And that shadowing I literally got because I was talking to my uncle how I want to be in the medical field, but I don't know what I want to do. And it's okay to say I don't know what I want to do, because then you have bigger place to work with. Like some people make a mistake and they think that you need to know what you want to do, but like we all are, like even me as a third year med student, I still don't, like I know what I want to do, but like I'm still open to everything, because you don't know, like maybe if I try something that I didn't expect that I might like and I end up loving, and then maybe I can go in that field. So just be open to everything, Don't be very picky that, oh, I only want to work here or with this person. Just go and do it, because at the end, they're only looking that you have some clinical experience, not the clinical experience. I hope that helps.
Yes, that fascinating answer. I'm gonna Andrew has his hand up. Andrew, feel free to ask a question.
Okay, I actually have two questions. Okay, I'm a grade 11 student. I was wondering about how many honors, achievement, or extracurricular activity that is you think that is enough to be accepted in a university in the USA. So that is the first one. The second one, how many hours do you think it's enough or good to study every day as an average?
Okay, so first thing for the extracurriculars, I had a lot of them because I was the person who just loved being involved on campus. However, I don't think you need that. Till the time you have things that show why you did it and what you gained out of it, it's fine. I would put approximate of like 5 things, but like 5 things literally can be like you tutoring someone or like you scribing somewhere, or like definitely have some leadership. That would be a big thing. Have a leadership, like be involved on some board, or um like do something. Sorry, that sounded so vague. Let me rephrase it. Be on some kind of board at your undergrad, because that's a must. Just, and it doesn't have to be something medical related. Remember that. It can be anything. I used to be vice president for Students of India Association, along with other stuff that was medical related. But I know that even that really helped me, because at the end they're looking for some kind of leadership. Like as a physician, you are a leader. Like you are leading so many people, you are educating so many patients, so you're a leader, you're an educator. So if you maybe like to tutor, then tutor some kids, and you can put that on your resume. Then I would definitely recommend like being a leader, or like having some kind of leadership role. Be involved in the community. Like this is, I can't give you a proper number, because it's like quality over quantity kind of a thing. So even though I had a lot of extracurriculars, I didn't put all of them. I only kept the ones that were relevant to making me a good applicant. But I would say have something that shows that you're very involved in the community, what you like to do for the community. So that should be one. You should be a leader. Something that, like, if you like tutoring, you can put that like I love mentoring. So I had a mentorship program, and I used to mentor like few mentees. So I had that on me. I would just say, like, make sure you have a variety of different things, not just one particular field, because they want to see how you are, like, as an all-rounder, not just one focus. Like, not everything should be for pre-med. You should be an all-rounder. So get involved in different organizations, and then just put whatever you think that showcases you. So again, have quality over quantity, and have variety of things that showcases you and your interests. And talking about the hours, so sorry, I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. Hours for a pre-med or hours for a med student?
As the pre-med.
Okay, that really
How it's and also how it difference between a pre-med or a med student.
oh, that was completely different for me. Like, and I think it's for all my friends too. Life as a pre-med is, I'm not gonna say easier, but it's less complicated than life as a med student. Med student, you're forced to study every single day. And because it's like, even if I slow down one day, and I have, which is fine. But like, even if you slow down one single day, you have to pick that up the other day, because like we would have, as I said, like we have exams every 2 weeks. I can, even if I get behind one day, I'm already behind like 6 lectures, 5 lectures. So life as a med student, you gotta study at least, like, I would say 8 hours minimum a day. But like Have I studied 8 hours every single day? No. Have I studied more than 8 hours few days? Yes. And have I studied less than 8 hours few days? Yes. It's more of like how much you can do and how much you can give that day. It's like the week before the exam, or at least like 3 days before the exam, we all are going all out. Like it just depends on like how much you need to study. But otherwise, I would definitely for a med student, I would say 6 to 8 hours a day. And then as a pre-med, I like, at least for my undergrad courses, like my first 2 years, I did not study that much. I can't even say, because I was very involved on campus. I used to love making friends. I used to love getting to know the culture of like universities and states. So I definitely got myself into it. And that's how I realized what I love in the field of medicine. Like I exposed myself to public health, business, psych. I did so many other stuff. But like when the MCAT studying came, I was doing entire day studying. I think I was pushing 6 to 8 hour days every single day. But I don't think as a pre-med, like until you get to med school, or like until you get to your fourth year, or I would say the other half of the third year, like don't push yourself that much. Like enjoy the experience of undergrad. This is never gonna come again. Life is so easy in the first 2 years, and like it's like first four and the fifth semester, first 5 semesters. Life is so easy. Once you hit OChem, then you get to like, I had to take physiology. Like, and then once by the time I was in my fourth year, like then you have to think about MCAT, then you have to think about like what to do after graduation. You have so many other things to focus on at that time. So like until like you're in your first 5 semesters, enjoy the experience of college or the university. Get involved on campus, do all this on campus like stuff. Get just get experience at that time, I would say, and then afterwards focus on studying. Like study while like doing everything. But like once you're in your last 3 semesters, you gotta go all out because you have future to plan, you have the hard classes that you're taking. But like once you hit there, I would definitely say you should be studying 5 to 6 hours every single day. So yeah,
Great
but
answer.
sorry, I can't give you a specific number.
Okay, thank you. And this was okay.
Uh,
I just ask one last question, and okay,
we're gonna keep it at one question. Try to keep it at one question per person, just because we have so many questions. So feel free to we'll have contact information after if you have more questions. But Noah, did you want to ask a quick question?
Yes, I have two questions. Can I ask it?
Yes.
The first question is that I have take many courses nowadays, but I really want to get a scholarship in medical schools and medical university. So what I can focus it? This is the first question. And the second question was that what are the points that university focus on them the most while writing essays for the scholarship? There are the two questions.
Yes. So something about med school that I'm not a big fan of is scholarships is really a hard thing. I honestly do not know anyone who has scholarships unless you go in the military, because that's just not an option. It's a very nonprofit private thing over here. So sadly, if you want scholarships, like I don't know any school over here except NYU. I know LECOM is like cheaper version of like is the cheapest med school. However, there's no university that gives out scholarships. However, once you start med school, like at least with my school, they send out emails, and that would be like scholarships for LGBTQ, scholarships for military again, and even that would be like $100, $500, $5,000 max. Otherwise, sadly, there's no scholarships in med school. It's all
I
low.
I would want to add that just recently, like last week, Johns Hopkins made their medical school free. I don't know if you've heard about that, right?
Yes, yes.
Insane. So
I'm
that's
sorry. You're right. I just finished my boards, so I'm like a bit stuck with the outside world yet, but I did see that. You're right. So now we have 2 schools that does free tuition.
Can I ask what is the point that focus to get to medical schools and medical university?
So I think she's asking about essays. Like, how did you frame those?
Yes. So I really like a huge part of me is moving, like of what I want to do as a physician is because I grew up in India and what the communities that I want to help. So I definitely focused on that. And I focused on how my parents showed me how to help the communities in India, like the small communities in India, and how coming here exposed me to bigger things and how I became a better person, like not a better person. I became a better person, but like how I became a better I was more exposed to more fields over here, so I became a better learner, and now I can go back or like at least try to help the communities back home and also like the small rural communities over here. And that's why I also focused myself towards all the rural all the schools that help the rural communities because that's the population I want to work with. So that was my main theme of the entire essay.
Okay, thanks.
I was seeing some questions in the chat. We know that you decided to pursue a DO medical route. Can you differentiate between the two and what the main differences are between the two different programs?
Yes, of course. That's actually my favorite thing to talk about. So this is something, again, expose yourself with different things. I was MD route throughout because growing up in India, we don't even have DOs back home. Like my physician, after I moved here, the first physician was a DO, and that's when I even realized what a DO is. But then I was still like in the MD route, and then I was scribing my physician, and she's an MD, and she's the one like I have never seen any physician, practicing in that way, like just the way she would spend so much time with patients. Like I feel like MDs are usually internal medicine and all those like higher internal medicine, surgery, ortho, endo, like all the specialized physicians, and they never have like all the complaints that my parents and my family has. It's like, oh, my doctor didn't spend time with me. Oh, we only spent 10 minutes and I had to wait for an hour for 10 minutes. It was so not worth it. And then it's like the complaints I hear that, oh, he or she didn't even check my heart. He or she didn't even check my lungs. So I was like, that's something that I want to like, that's the gap I want to cover as a physician. And then I was scribing for this physician and I was just I was talking to her. I'm like, it's really nice to work with a physician who like is totally opposite of all the physicians I've heard of from my family. And then she's like, yeah, I'm an MD, but I like to take a DO approach. And DOs are more about like, treating the patient like mind, body, spirit. Like they want to get to know you, they want to treat you, not the problem. Like we think that it's not just like the problem. Like if you come with back pain, it's not just the back pain that's the problem. There can be other things that can be connected with the back pain. So as the DO, we learn like if someone comes with upper back pain, I gotta check lungs because that's how like your body works. And all that I learned through becoming a DO. With DOs, we have the magic of hand touch. If you guys know what a chiropractor is, like, I don't know if you guys have seen the videos on like, on social media where they like just crack all the bones or all the joints. We don't do that, but we learn that. But most likely what we do is like, we can help the patient to give the instant relief at the clinic and until the meds kick in and they do the work. For me, I really wanted to work on the bedside manners and wanted to improve the bedside manners. And, when the patient leaves my clinic, I want them to be satisfied that, oh, yeah, she spent her time on me. She went to an extra effort to, make sure that I was doing okay. And I feel like having that touch of hands really helps with that. So that's why I took a DO approach instead of MD. I actually applied only for DO schools instead of DO and MD. And I also wanted to be close to home. And in Florida, like I'm from Florida, the med schools in Florida are so competitive. I need to have MCAT of like 516 if I wanted to go to MD schools in Florida. And I had to be realistic with my score because my CARS was not the best. So instead of wasting money on different applications, I went with DO and this school that I am at, which is only like 5 hours from home. So there were like many factors that went into like picking what school I want to go to. And here I am being a DO now. And I love it.
Great answer. Reed has another question. Raised her hand is raised. Oh, Liam.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh,
I was asking about how does the educational medical system in USA looks like, and how is difficult from other countries, as I hear that studying medicine in USA is much more difficult and different and takes a long time. And what do you mean by pre-med? Sometimes I hear you saying pre-med a lot, so I want to know a lot about what does pre-med mean and what is shadowing.
Okay. So pre-med is technically like your entire journey before you get to med school. So I don't know how it is where you are, but like if I can compare it to something, it would be India because that's where my few of my friends are. So we like in states, how we do it is like you get to the 12th grade, you go to undergrad, and undergrad is your pre-med, like pre-medical time or pre-medical journey, and then you go to med school. At least in India, like where the journey is like you get through the 12th grade and then you go straight to med school. So I don't know if you technically have pre-med where you are, but that's how we have it in states. Like we have it like you finish high school, do pre-med, and then do med school. Shadowing is shadowing is literally just like following the physician when they are working. So it can either be in surgery and you're just someone who's standing on a corner and just seeing what they're doing, or it can be at a clinic where they're seeing patients and they would literally just introduce you to the patient as this student is just shadowing me to gain some more clinical experience. And you just like shadowing is literally like you are their shadow and you are just being in their presence and you're seeing how they work as a physician, and you learn from whatever you want to learn, but they don't like go, maybe they go out of their way to teach you, but like it's just like for you to get exposure to the patient side.
So I think shadowing should be for medical students only. Is there any programs that provide shadowing hours for high school students and give them certificates for this?
I know that there are some programs that like give that exposure even to high school students. However, I don't know which ones because that would be like very specific because not a lot of people do. But I know that there are high school students who can have shadowing opportunities. You'll just have to search that in that about that in your area because it's different for every person and like every physician. I would also recommend like if you want, you can, oops, if you want, you can, ooh, sorry. Can you guys see me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm gonna stop the screen share. How can I do that?
I
Can
think
you-
it's shared. Yeah, I think
Oh, my bad. Okay, so I think you will have to get exposed to the area that you are in right now and maybe reach out to a physician. Even though you're a high school student, you can just tell them that I am interested in medicine, but I'm not sure if I want to do this or not. Is it okay if I come to shadow you? And maybe try a non-surgical field so you know they don't feel, because sometimes people literally faint in the like in the OR, and they don't want to take that much responsibility. So if you go for a non-surgical field, they can help you out.
But they won't give me a certificate.
That honestly depends on the physician you go to or the program you choose.
Okay, so for the pre-med years in US, I think that you take 4 years studying pre-med in any field, then you take another 4 years studying the medical fields. Is that right?
Correct.
So the first 4 years of studying pre-med, you study any scientific field that you from an old choice,
You can study any field, like
even computer science.
even with science.
I think she said
Computer science.
I think she said computer science.
Yes, Even computer science, you can do computer science. The only thing you have to make sure is you have there are pre-med requirements, like there are certain classes you need there. So get those classes and then take MCAT.
Yes. Okay. We'll do one last question before we wrap it up, and then we'll provide your contact information, your Instagram, if that's comfortable.
Yes.
Okay. Liam, we'll end off with your question.
Hi, can you hear me well?
Mhm.
Is there anything about your journey that you either regret or that you would want to have a do-over?
My MCAT. I don't know how, but if I could do or change something about my MCAT, I would do. Like otherwise, I'm very happy with my journey of how I got exposure of every different thing. It's just that sometimes with MCAT, like, and I think it was like COVID, the mental strength to keep pushing was not there afterwards because you see so many things going around you. And I was not living with my family at that time and just studying nonstop by being by myself. I think it got really hard for me. So I was just like, yeah, and I got a good score. So I know I can't complain. I just wish I had more strength in me. And like, I didn't even know a lot about like UWorld at that time because like I was just studying by myself. All my friends were studying by themselves. Like, I wish I had that group that I could be with. And, we could share resources, we could test each other. And then I took the exam because I feel like if I knew more about the resources, that would have helped. At that time, I literally felt like I had those Kaplan books and I was just like trying to make it work over there. But if I could change something, I would want to have more resources for questions and then give this exam.
Well, great answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Can I ask the last question? I'm sorry for disturbing.
No worries. We're actually on time, and we want to be respectful of Aisha's time. So we're gonna end the speaker session now, but we will provide contact information for you to contact her, and plus amazing influencer. Check her out on Instagram, and you can hear more about her journey. She posts amazing content for you to get a little more snippet inside her life. So
You
we would
guys
like
can definitely, I know he has my email, so if you want to share my email, you can. And yeah, he also has my Instagram. So either way, you can reach out to me. And luckily, I am free right now because I'm done with my board, so I can try my best to answer in any way possible.
Yeah, so we would like to give for our amazing guest speakers, we'd like to give a little round of applause. So if everyone can go click the react button and give a
Yeah.
round of applause, that would be amazing. We thank you so much. I learned a lot, and I know I took a lot out of this. So thank you so much for giving us some of your time this morning, and we really do appreciate it.
Of course. Good luck to everyone in this journey. I know it's a long journey, but you all will make it through, I promise.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today.
Of course. Have a good day, guys. Bye-bye.
All right, everyone. Okay. I hope you guys had learned a couple of things from Aisha and her journey. I love Aisha. I saw her on social media a couple times this past year, and I've been very inspired by her. She's very motivational and she has a lot of energy, so we love that. So I know some people were asking shadowing hours, and programs that provide that. Wanted to clarify that MedStem powered, if you complete the program, we do provide shadowing hours for you. So that is definitely an advantage of completing that. So I know sometimes across the world it's maybe hard to find those programs. Again, we're completely free virtual and we provide shadowing hours. So just letting you all know that if you complete the program, that you will get the shadowing hours from this program. So yeah. So now we're going to move on to the workshop portion of this presentation. I have a question. Shadowing hours. So a lot of med schools, pre-professional schools like to see that you've been engaged within your profession. So for instance, going to visit a doctor to see and spend a day with them, seeing their day of life. You don't really know that you can become like a physician or, go and be a surgeon, for example, without really seeing their life. The shadowing it provides you the insight into their lives. And a lot of programs have a lot of programs and hospitals do provide those opportunities. Before we start our workshop, we're going to launch our poll. Slipped my mind. So I will launch that right now. we'll take a couple seconds to answer that. If you don't see the poll, if you're having trouble, please message Rorik on Slack or let us know in the chat and we'll let you know how to do. So yeah, the poll is live. And we'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. In the meantime, I'm gonna share today's workshop, both in English and Arabic translated. So feel free to open those links and then I'll get myself situated for the presentation.
I'm sorry for interrupt. Can I say something?
Yeah, what was your question?
It's not a question really, but I need you to speak more slower because I can't
Oh, yeah.
understand you. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
totally understand. I'm sorry. I will for sure make sure that I'm speaking slow. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna share my screen.
Sorry,
Yes.
the ball is not active with me.
Okay, if the poll is not active, we will let you just Rorik's send a message on Slack to Rorik. Again, Slack is the best place to communicate if you're not, and try and do that during the session right now. And he'll take care of that for you. All right, give me 1 second. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so I again provided both the links in the Arabic translated version as well as the English version of this workshop. But today we're gonna have a workshop on public health, community health, global health, and epidemiology. I know those are we'll get into each of those terms, but I wanted to ensure that we had some education around public health. I know Aisha just mentioned her working in the public health field as a clinical caseworker and as an epidemiologist. So this is a great place to get some insight into how that works and how those programs operate. So I'll provide some education on that today. So for the agenda for today's workshop, we're gonna talk about what public health is. We'll talk about some of the major breakthroughs in public health, and some of you guys might be able to put some terms together and we'll also work on identifying some health disparities, understanding the different connections between global community and public health and how those all kind of work intertwine. And we will also be analyzing, if we have time, using a modern public health approach to solving some community health problems known as the PERI approach. We might not go through the whole thing today, but it's a good introduction into how public health professionals approach public health problems in their communities. And then I'll allocate some time toward the end to dive into the case study that was assigned for optional homework. So no worries if you didn't have a chance to read it, but it will kind of apply some of the topics that we discussed today. And yeah, you'll be able to see how public health kind of affects populations, people, and communities. So before we start, when you think of public health, what do you think of? What are some words that pop into your mind? Let us know in the chat and I'll give you a couple seconds to think through that. So when you think of public health, what do you think of? Yasmin?
I think that the people that don't have the money to having a care in a high hospital and go to a medical private doctor.
Yeah, so access to care, that is one thing public health professionals definitely try to tackle. Hannah?
I agree with Jasmine. I feel it's like giving the person comfort, so he don't burden himself with public health and or his health. Like
it maybe give me some comfort because health and security is a big deal for everyone. We all care about our mental health, and our health in general.
Yeah, so I'm hearing like more like communicable health. Like for instance, the pandemic, the COVID-19, which just passed us a couple of years ago, that was a huge public health concern. And we wanted to make sure, public health professionals wanted to make sure that people had access to care, but also treatment options when needed. And COVID-19 was a very good globally, it was a very good analysis of our structure, our infrastructure in public health, which means like, how can our hospitals and health systems operate during times like when there's a pandemic? And we saw that a lot of people were dying whenever just because they didn't have access, there was not enough ventilators, there was not enough personal protective equipment, PPE for healthcare workers. There were staffing shortages that led to doctors overworking themselves. So that all accounts to some of the, especially in the US, some of the public health struggles that we have here and keeping the infrastructure alive. So I'll take one more hand, but Liam, did you want to provide your?
Me?
Yes.
Public health, I think it's like just the overall well-being of a community. It's just having that, health, security, and
Perfect.
and
Yeah.
just disease prevention, I think
Disease
too,
prevention.
it's like a big one.
Exactly. We'll talk about the history of public health, but a lot of it's been really focused on preventing disease, eradicating disease, and now, in this time and age, we have a lot of more. We public health professionals provide a lot more analysis on how to prevent disease. Just an FYI, I am a third-year public health student at UT Austin, so I'm pretty much in the middle of taking all these courses. So if you ever have any questions about pursuing a pre-medical degree with public health, let me know. I think one of the big problems that we have in our system is public health education is separate from science and medical education. So we have a lot of physicians, that are really well versed in science, but they don't really know how to tackle disease, or they don't know how to prevent disease in their communities. And public health provides those frameworks, provides those analysis. So if you're looking for a major in undergrad, I am a strong advocate for public health education. But yeah, we can talk more about that in my journey later.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry for interrupting, but I was asking about, is public health something that you study like biology and those other things?
It's a major, so you can study it as a major. Like my major is public health, but I'm also pre-med, so I'm taking all the science classes, like the biologies, chemistry, genetics, but my focus is more public health. So epidemiology, fighting disease, statistical analysis of public health, all that is what you can is what public health.
So you study public health as a pre-med career?
Yes, you can take them they work together very finely. So you can take both of them together. But we'll keep questions for the end, just so I'm going to make sure we get through the majority of the workshop today. But yeah, I can answer questions more towards the end. So public health is an evidence-based science that focuses on health promotion, surveillance, which is tracking, and organization to lead health challenges. So it involves population, environmental health. It involves a lot of different areas of health. And it also has to do with a lot of policies. So we'll talk about how policies impact health. But again, public health is a science, it's evidence-based science. That's very important. Public health is completely evidence-based. So there's ton of we'll talk about later, cohort studies. There's kind of like statistical analysis that are done to provide data. It's a lot of focus on data analysis and surveillance. So surveillance is a really important word in public health. That means and we'll talk about originated from, but it's how do we pinpoint disease? How do we know where it's originating from, and how can we prevent it? That is a really big takeaway in public health. Public health also is focused on disease prevention, research, community efforts. It also has to do with examination of the social and economic determinants of health, which we talked about a couple seconds ago, like access to, transportation to get to medical appointments. All of that is, in public health. And that is one of the quotes that I learned that really stuck with me. It's the science and art of preventing disease. So public health is a human-focused science. It's a science. Don't get me wrong. Like a lot of people think that it's more humanities. It's a science. You are studying statistics, you're studying genetics, you're studying how the disease originates, microbiology. You're studying all these topics, but you're focusing on how it impacts a community instead of a cell, which is how I think of it. So, yeah. So, some key public health terminology that you'll see as you study public health is endemics. So endemics is whenever there's a constant presence of a disease in a certain population or geographical group. Epidemics is when there's occurrence of more cases than expected in a specific group. So that's whenever like if you're in a city and there might be a certain number of set cases of COVID. Like I believe in my city there COVID still is around, but it's really controlled. It's not very it's not very prominent. But if it becomes prominent and people start getting it, then we could and they're very high cases, it could be known in that specific area, in my city or my state or my region, that will be known as an epidemic. And then cluster is similar. It's just a group of cases as well. And then a pandemic is whenever there's disease and spread of disease over a large area of a population. COVID-19, prime example of a pandemic. So yeah. So I have a couple questions that you guys can think through. So fill in the blank pretty much. So malaria is present in Africa at all times. At all times it's present. But it's only in Africa. What is it in Africa? So if it's present at all times in Africa and it's through infected mosquitoes, would this be an endemic, an epidemic, a pandemic, or a cluster? Let me know.
Endemic.
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 Yeah,
Perfect.
endemic.
Perfect. Just for time's purposes, I'll move on to the third
Why
question.
wouldn't it be an epidemic?
So epidemic, again, as we look at the definition, it's whenever it occurs, there's more cases than expected. So malaria is present at all times in Africa. It's a disease that's pretty prevalent, that across the continent. So because it's not like surprise, the disease is, it's here, it's more of like, it's been present forever and it's not like a disease that hasn't been present. So that's why it would be an endemic and not an epidemic. And then I'll move on to the third question, which is HIV and AIDS. So HIV and AIDS, how would we describe that? It is present, well, I'll show you a map later, but it's present throughout the whole. It's a pandemic.
Pandemic.
Epidemic.
Pandemic.
It's a pandemic, correct. It's a pandemic because it's
Pandemic.
It is pandemic.
yes, perfect, great. All right. Feel free to attempt the two other questions later at some other time. We'll share the slides with you, but we'll provide answers to those. But just for the case of time, I'm gonna move on. So some other key terminology is morbidity, mortality, and determinants of health. So morbidity is pretty much refers to being morbid or having a specific disease, the prevalence of a disease. So it describes people that are pretty much like, for instance, if you have heart disease and you're not dead, then you're morbid with heart disease. You have heart disease. It's pretty much tracking the unhealthy people, not unhealthy, or people with a specific disease in the population. Mortality is whenever you go from, you succumb to a disease. And it's when you die from a particular disease. So there's different mortality rates you'll hear, like maternal mortality rates. That's a common one that is here worldwide. Determinant of health, we can talk about this. There's so many different determinants of health, but some factors include ethnicity, genetic makeup. For instance, I analyzed some of my genetics, and I am, my genetics are at risk for hypolipidemia, which is having excess lipid cells and cholesterol and having a higher chance of getting cholesterol and diabetes and cardiovascular disease. So knowing that determinant, I'm able to, approach how I tackle my health in a really, in a different way, because I understand that I'm at higher risk and I could be more cautious of it at my young age. Again, public health starts now. A lot of people wait till they're like, especially for cardiovascular disease, over 98% of cardiovascular disease is atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, which is fatty streaks in your heart, and it is completely preventable if you take the right measures early on in your life. That is, limiting your sodium intake, for instance. That's a big recommendation. A lot of diets across the world have high sodium intake. Sodium is like salt. So a lot of sodium has been known to cause heart disease and be a risk factor. So, being cautious of your sodium intake is a good idea if you want to prevent cardiovascular disease. But the problem is most foods that we eat are already so high in sodium. So if I go eat out, I will likely have 3 times my sodium intake just because the foods are so highly processed that it just has so much sodium in it. So when you think of what you eat, be very careful on, eat like even some of the your favorite foods, you might be shocked at how much sodium they have and how it's 3 or 4 times their limit. I think I was having a dish at home, and I looked up the sodium content, and I think it was like 4 times that amount. So I was very shocked, and we definitely took some steps to make sure that how we can reduce it. And there's multiple ways that you can reduce the food that you already eat with less sodium. So yeah, good to understand that. So public health has been pretty much, since the beginning of time, there's been some sort of measures that people have taken, but I've kind of outlined some of the biggest movements in public health, in my opinion, that have been very, very critical in understanding the science behind public health that we know today. So between the old age in the 1830s, a lot of public health was more cultural and religious based. So male circumcision, premarital abstinence, dietary restriction, to reduce foodborne disease. So that was a lot of the preventative measures taking place before we had the hygiene movement, which focused on pretty much, we'll talk about this in depth in a second, but it was whenever we were able to finally understand sanitary conditions and understand disease and infections and how they affect us. And John Snow has been known to be a key player and is known as the father of epidemiology. Epidemiology, that term is within public health and is pretty much defined as the distribution of the determinants of disease. That is a key definition. I would definitely know that to understand epidemiology, how the different factors and determinants that affect and influence disease. So to understand this, pretty much I can summarize it in a couple sentences, but there was a cholera outbreak in London, and John Snow, so there was a widespread belief that it was spread through bad air. That's how cholera was spread. But John Snow, he doubted that theory, and he was able to show and hypothesize through science that it was actually transmitted through contaminated water. And he was able to use this study called the Broad Street Pump Study, and able to outline where these diseases were occurring and use surveillance, which is, we talked about a second ago. Surveillance is tracking disease, and he was able to track it to a pump. And once he found that this pump was the cause of the cholera, this infected water, he was able to analyze that data using science. He interviewed local residents, and he found that there was one pump that had higher risk of infection than any other pump. And with that, they were able to take steps to remove that pump, and the number of cholera cases significantly declined. And this, again, laid the foundation for a lot of the modern day epidemiological approaches. And yeah, it kind of pioneered data collection, mapping, and analysis tools in public health. After that era, another era is the contagion control era. And this is really working through communicable diseases, how they're spread, and introducing germ theory, and how germs are spread. And a lot of this can be linked back to so epidemiology, bacteriology, and immunology is kind of what was being discovered at this time, and people were starting to see that how diseases were transmitted. But one very notable study that was done to show that disease is beyond infection is the pellagra study by Goldberg, which was pretty much a widespread occurrence in the southern United States, and people were having these symptoms, and everyone believed that it was because of some sort of infection, some sort of bacteria, some sort of like contaminated water, contaminated food was leading to this disease. But Goldberg he doubted that theory. He was like, I think that there is some sort of dietary deficiency leading to that disease, not just infection. And he was able to conduct various studies and alterate people's diets to show that if people altered their diet in a specific way, that this pellagra would decrease, that the cases would decrease. And with that, he was able to find that it was because of vitamin 3 deficiencies that's leading to this disease, not bacteria or infection. It was a vitamin 3 deficiency. He was also able to use filth parties as experimental proof. So pretty much he asked people to inject in their skin, blood, or other secretions some sort of secretion of a pellagra patient. So using a needle to see if it was transmitted through bacteria. And the people that were shot with the pellagra never had any symptoms. They never developed it because they weren't deficient. Deficiency doesn't spread through, bodily contact or, ingestion of skin or blood. So that was a big breakthrough to understand the diseases beyond infections and bacteria, and understanding that nutritional deficiencies also play a big role in public health, and access to nutrients is essential. We talked a little bit about this, but germ theory, pretty much before germ theory, everybody thought that germs and diseases were spread through bad air. Germ theory kind of allowed for scientific understanding of how microorganisms cause disease, bacteria and fungus, as well as how they're transmitted through various mediums such as food, water, vector, insects, and how they're able to multiply and divide and become, spread disease. So this was essential in understanding public health as we know it today. So to move on, another really important breakthrough in public health is the eradication of smallpox. So smallpox was a disease is one of the deadliest disease with a mortality rate about 30%, and it's one of the only, I think it's the only at that scale eradicated disease. So it's really cool to learn from how they were able to utilize public health strategies to eradicate the disease of smallpox. So before public health measures were put in place for smallpox, one of the ways that it was kind of before a vaccine was developed, the ancient technique was known as a variolation, where people would they would expose smallpox spores and live viruses into people's body to be able to let their immune system fight the disease to make them immune. But this was not that helpful because it was spreading a lot of smallpox, so it was an effort but not the best. And after the Jenner's vaccine development, the first successful vaccine, this marked the beginning of modern vaccination. And after that, and once a vaccine was developed, the World Health Organization, which is a global health organization, they were able to use various public health campaigns to make people get vaccinated against public health, and utilize, again, surveillance and containment to eradicate disease when new cases came. So again, similar to John Snow's idea, like they were able to find where it was occurring and be able to provide ring vaccination techniques, which is pretty much vaccinating the population where it was starting to make sure it didn't spread. Also isolation, pandemic, how we had to stay home. Similarly, it was a sort of isolation that was a way to contain the disease. Again, global efforts, it was a worldwide effort to be able to tackle smallpox. So mass vaccination campaigns were conducted worldwide. However, there were some challenges just because of resistance from local populations, political instabilities, but with, I think, the World Health Organization's leadership, the last occurring case of smallpox was in October 26, 1977. And it was classified as eradicated in May 8th of 1980. So really amazing, really amazing use of various different public health initiatives as well as different science fields to eradicate one of the deadliest diseases. We'll talk about, I'll talk about one more type of disease here, and then I'll keep the slides for you guys to view later on maternal mortality. But one of the disease, another pandemic we talked about earlier is the HIV/AIDS pandemic, which I'll show you a map. It's pretty much spans throughout the whole entire world. And this is from 2021. This is the most latest data I could find. And again, you can see where it's really situated in sub-Saharan Africa and some South Asian countries. Pretty much everywhere in the country has occurrences of this disease. So it's important to understand that there's a reason why it's so difficult to cure or even prevent HIV and AIDS, just because it's transmitted through bodily fluids, but also that it's very, very difficult to get the proper education needed to be able to provide assistance and help at a global scale. So while prevention strategies are easy, again, in the United States, access to medication is very easy, like PrEP, which is one of the ways that is one of the ways HIV is one of the ways that it's an amazing prevention strategy to help prevent the occurrence of disease. But access to medication worldwide, that is not as accessible as it is in the United States. So it's important to know that while it might work in one country, it's not always the same in different countries that don't have access to such medications, insurances, and a lot of times it's out of pocket, so it's even more expensive. And then testing and early diagnosis is really, really important. Education and awareness, stigma and discrimination reduction. A lot of South Asian populations, as well as other populations throughout the world, there's a really big stigma around talking about HIV and AIDS. So it leads to, it's spreading with that because people don't know that it's such a disease and how it spreads, that it leads to, the disease spreading even more. That's really important to understand that while it's stigmatization is also leading to challenges for public health professionals to try and eradicate the disease. But it's important that we as future medical professionals understand how this disease works and set aside any sort of feelings towards certain diseases. I know it can be very stigmatized in your country, maybe within your within how you view it, but it's important as medical professionals that we're not biased in terms of how we approach disease and how we understand that it affects other people. Also, in America, without insurance, HIV and AIDS medication costs about $3,000 a month. So I can't imagine how much it costs in other areas of the world. But just letting you know, even preventing, once you have the disease, to even prevent it and reduce your chances of getting AIDS, it's really difficult because it's very, very, very expensive to treat the disease. So that's why it leads to a lot of deaths. That's one thing I think really important to know. Yes. Okay. So we'll keep another global health big challenge, maternal mortality. If you read a little bit of the case study that was assigned for optional homework, you might have read a little bit about how maternal mortalities in Guatemala was really, really high, and how access to care and pap smears, was a challenge, and it led to a lot of high rates of maternal mortality. This just goes to show the layers of healthcare. Policy, government, how populations are affected, they're all intertwined. So if there's, for instance, funding, as you read in the case study, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but while there can be hospitals and while there can be, access to community health centers, language can be a barrier. There might not be enough funding to get everyone. I believe in the case study, there was like 1,000 people in line in the emergency room or to be on the wait list to get access to care. So even though the ability for services to be present is there, doesn't mean it's equitable or accessible. So it's really important to understand that as future medical professionals, that we understand that healthcare is beyond just treating patients. It's about, you know, how policy informs and how policy impacts the type of success that we see in public health initiatives. Again, a lot of public health initiatives are not funded well. I believe cardiovascular disease funding is very, it's not a lot in the United States. While there's a lot of programs, access to the care is difficult. So if we increase funding, again, that's through policy and government and politics, that can help increase some of the initiatives and access to healthcare. So just, I think it's important to know that how many different layers impact healthcare. You can also talk about some social determinants of health. I think it's better to see some examples. So I will provide some in a second, but social determinants of health is pretty much the places that we live, interact, and, you know, play all impact our health. So early childhood experiences, our race, job insecurity, food insecurity, housing, all that intertwines to healthcare. How that can I can show you an example. It's like, for instance, John lives in a low-income neighborhood with limited job opportunities. He works 2 part-time jobs with no health benefits. The stress of financial instability affects his mental health, leading to anxiety and depression. Without health insurance, John cannot afford regular medical checks and mental health services, resulting in untreated health issues that worsen over time. So again, this is a lot of different, you know, limited job opportunities with limited insurance, leading to mental health issues that are left untreated, which just worsen over time. All, you know, different social determinants of health interacting with another. That is, I think, a really good example of, you know, how different, you know, how when we think of public health and healthcare, we have to attack so many different portions. We have to attack access to healthcare. We have to medicate insurance. It's really important in terms of increasing access to insurance so people can afford their medications and prescriptions. I believe insulin costs, which is another type of medication that's essential for people with diabetes. It used to be very, very expensive in the United States, but I think it was capped off at a couple $100 now, or less than $100 with the new leadership. But again, very important to know that it can be very expensive to take care of your health, just because of how expensive, you know, how expensive it is to access certain healthcare treatments. So again, here just kind of shows the different socioeconomic factors, physical health behaviors, all that impact health. Again, physical environment also is important for healthcare. So if you live in a city, you might be exposed to toxins in the air. You might also be exposed to various, like, for instance, if you want to go for a run, but it's unsafe to run, or if there are, you know, restrictions on how late you can be out, or your gender. I know some countries across the world don't allow, you know, women to be outside after a certain time, or women to be outside at all. That can affect health, because they don't have access to gyms and services, and, you know, going out and getting fresh air, and, you know, engaging in physical activity, all can lead to various health issues. I'll stop now. I think I've gone through a lot of content, so I want to make sure that we have some time. I ask some questions. I have the ability to answer some questions. Yeah, Dina, did you have a question? Okay, no question. I think the hand was up. Okay, I'll make sure that we go through this. Yeah, if you need me to slow down or anything, I'm sorry. I just sometimes start and I don't know I'm speaking fast. Just let me know, and live transcripts will be available after the session. So feel free to utilize those as well. And the YouTube we have a recorded video on YouTube, so you can feel free to slow that down as you need, as you access this information. But now, as we talked about some of the different factors that lead to various that impact health, cardiovascular disease, again, I was talking about that. It's a leading global cause of death, #1 killer in America. What do you think are some factors that lead to high rates of cardiovascular disease? I've mentioned some. How can it be prevented? And what do you think are some policy solutions? If I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, please let me know. To Mimona?
It's Memona.
Yes.
I think the leading cause for cardiovascular diseases is the diet, high cholesterol diet, fast food,
Yes.
and then the less physical activities nowadays, like we are totally at our home and
Yeah.
preferring more indoor activities than outdoor. So this is the main kind of causes, I guess.
Yeah, that's some great factors that lead to the high rates of cardiovascular disease: nutritional access, lack of physical education, and access in spaces to engage in physical activity. All kind of intertwine with why the rates are so high across the world. I'll take two more hands, but Rodwa, let me know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Rhoda, yeah, Rhoda.
Rhoda, yes, Rhoda.
Please, really, I can't understand the meaning of mortality or something like this.
Mortality?
Plus, can you repeat this? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Can you repeat this for me?
So I can actually go back to the slide. So if you want to take a screenshot of it, but morbidity refers to someone being morbid with a disease, so having a certain disease, but you haven't yet succumbed to it. So if you have heart disease, there's a very high chance that you will pass away with heart disease, just because as you age, it gets worse. It leads to heart attacks, strokes, and it leads to a lot of health complications. So morbidity is when there's a certain population or individual society or the prevalence of a disease within
Can I tell something, please?
particular society, and then mortality is when you die from that certain disease. It's really that so you can have cardiovascular disease morbidity, which is the percentage of a population suffering from the disease, and mortality, how many people are killed. So yeah, that's the difference. One is, yeah. If you have any further questions, feel free to let me know. Yes?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anna?
Hi, are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Continuing about the cardiovascular diseases, obviously, as stated before, there is dietary and exercise issues, but I also want to add that there's like this stress factor, which when you're stressed, it greatly affects your heart and
Yes.
therefore can lead to cardiovascular disease.
Yeah, stress, I think, again, looking at the example that we're talking about earlier, stress leads to anxiety and depression, and that might lead you to make unhealthy food choices. So a lot of people, and I'm a victim, we all are a victim to it. We want to eat foods that make us feel comfortable. And a lot of times those foods that make us feel comfortable aren't too healthy. So again, that puts you at risk of cardiovascular disease. It's important to understand that public health is a system. So again, we talked about this earlier, but there's so many various, there's a web map I would like to share with you. I don't have access to it now, but almost everything has some sort of implications in public health. So it's really important that we, understand what it means and have a basic understanding at least of how everything is interconnected, which leads to my next point.
Sorry for interrupting you. Can I add one more point? So in my country, cardiovascular disease is so popular, and it's because especially men's in my country use tobacco and harmful alcohol. So because of it too.
Yeah, so tobacco use, all impacts lung disease. It leads to cardiovascular disease. Health, so it's very important that we understand. So a lot of times there's tobacco cessation programs, especially in the United States, that are programs targeting campaigns that protect people from the marketing strategies of tobacco use. So again, a lot of times it can lead to addiction, and addiction is really, really hard to cure. So there are different ways that you can get off of tobacco use, and different medical interventions that you can use.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think also if one of your parents have this, then it's going to be like a big risk.
Exactly. And when you're at increased risk, that means
genetics.
Genetically, like I said, hypolipidemia, when you have an increased number of lipids, it can really lead to a lot of health issues. So you have to be very cognizant and very, understand that you're at increased risk. That means you have to take even more precautions when you're younger and when you have the ability to change your lifestyle. Because after you hit a certain age, really hard to you can't once cardiovascular disease does okay, after you have your first heart attack and you pretty much will have cardiovascular disease. It's really hard to reverse that damage. So it's really important to start early in your communities. You can have these lectures and talk to people about the importance of cardiovascular disease. You can analyze the diets that people eat in your communities and be like, oh, these foods are very, very unhealthy because they have high sodium intake. They have high, they have high added sugars, which all lead to various health, put you at risk for cardiovascular disease, and maybe provide some information and supplemental ingredients to, have the same types of foods, but with less sodium. That's a way that you can make impact yourself in your communities. And we'll talk more about that in a bit, but yeah, so very important, great pieces of information. So yeah, all health programs, again, rely on data and epidemiological trends to determine risk factors. And they're all interconnected. Global health, public health, community health, all interconnected. And they all, share certain characteristics that are very similar. Is that they use epidemiological data, as well as it's very important that we keep surveillance of certain diseases in all these different categories of public health. So very important information. So we probably will have a little time to get into this, but I will provide the slideshows after. But to solve public health challenges, we have various studies that are done, very statistical approaches. We don't have a lecture on statistics, but if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me on Slack. But a lot of public health professionals utilize a program called R coding, which is a coding language that you can do a lot of statistical analysis, create charts, graphs, and analyze large sets of data. That is a lot of being a public health professional, you also have to use some coding techniques to be able to analyze data. So that's also really cool to learn. So yeah, we can talk to. So when you try to create public health solutions, there's kind of two different ways that you can approach solution. There's a high risk approach and improving the average approach. The high risk approach is focusing on the population solely with the highest risk of developing a disease. So yeah, all of these people really but not that they don't matter, but we're not gonna put emphasis on prevention, or we're not gonna focus on solutions for the median population. Only the highest quartile population we're gonna focus on. So the end of this, at the tail of this bell curve. Same here, we're going to focus on everyone after the median and not focus on anyone that could possibly be developing the disease. So just focus on the high risk solution. There are pros and cons to the solution as it targets the highest at-risk population, but we won't get into that today. But I just want you to be familiar with that there are different approaches to solve these issues. Another approach is just improving the average. So we're just moving the bell curve over and improving the average for everyone. But still we have people at very high risk. So yeah, so it focuses on the entire population and reduce the risk to some percentage for everyone and not just the high risk people. So how you solve public health approaches is you utilize the Perry approach. So that's the problems, etiology, recommendations, implementations, and evaluation. And this is evidence-based public health at its core. So you identify the problem, and then you have to be able to describe the problem utilizing various statistics, and then provide an etiology, which is pretty much the cause and the effect measures in public health. And then using that, once you have your etiology developed and your cause developed, contributory cause is what they call it, you can utilize that to implement recommendations based on what you've analyzed. And then with that recommendations, you can implement it in various community programs, and then you evaluate it using a framework called RE-AIM, which kind of analyzes how your initiative went. So we'll just talk, since I know we're ending on time, and I want to talk about that case study. I think it was a really interesting case study. We'll just talk about problems today, how we can describe a problem in public health. So we describe a problem by again, morbidity and mortality, what we talked about a couple of minutes ago, those terms. We talk about the burden of the disease and the course of the disease. So how often is it occurring? Who is it occurring within? And how is it what happens when the disease occurs? So epidemiologists, this bathtub is very, I think, helpful to see this. Distribution of disease is where it's occurring, who's occurring with, what are the specific determinants of health that are being affected, and who are they distributed amongst. And then describing the distribution will utilize incidence and prevalence statistics. So incidence was the number of new cases, is this faucet drips. These are all the new cases, and the prevalence is the people that are recently exposed to the disease, plus everyone else who has the disease. So it's everyone living in a population with a specific disease. And the at-risk population is the people that are at risk. And usually it depends on the study, but it could be the whole population in like the 60 people that were born in the 60s, or people that are above 50-year-old. That could be the at-risk population, but just depends on what you're studying. But this kind of shows you how incidence and prevalence are used to describe a problem. And then etiology, we won't get into all the specific details today, but that really focuses on, different studies that have various different characteristics to be able to define a problem and establish a cause. So there's multiple, I talk about group association, individual association, cause preceding effects, but because of time, I want to make sure we get to the case, talk about the case study today. Feel free to look over those slides and let us know if you have questions after the presentation today. But we can also know that quality of evidence is also really important in public health. So the more meta-analysis are large scale studies, large cohort studies, quasi-experimental studies. If you have questions on what those mean, reach out to me on Slack. But again, this kind of shows, as you increase in this pyramid, the better quality of evidence you have. So whenever you have healthcare, if you want to, propose a policy, if we provide analysis and evidence that are in the higher ends of this pyramid, then it's more helpful and more eye-catching to policymakers, showing how all of it kind of works together. Okay, ton of information. Please revisit these slides at your own time, ask questions. This is only 1% of what public health is and how public health professionals approach problems, but it's a field with so many opportunities. So feel free to ask questions on how you can get involved, and we'll provide some ways that you can get involved today or soon in public health initiatives in your own community. So I'll leave questions in a couple minutes. I want to make sure that we get through this, but I was wondering if everyone could, whoever had the chance to get to the case study, if anyone wants to let us know what they read, as well as some of the key takeaways from the case study about the barriers to care for Indigenous women with cervical cancer in Guatemala. Feel free to raise your hand and I'll let you speak on the topic and what you learned when you read the case study. Feel free to use a chat too if you want to do it. All right, I don't think anyone has their hand raised. Okay, Hannah?
I have a question, but it's not about this topic. Can I ask it?
Yes.
What should I do if I want to keep myself safe? In my family, from my mother's side, there is a disease that is I don't know how to say it.
ممكن تقوليها بالعربي وحد يترجمها.
يعني اللي هو حاجة هو منتشر جدا يعني مثلا say cancer is very spread in my family not spread like I guess my mom
it's
or
like a genetic something.
Yes, something like that and also death. And also that what should we do in these cases? Like I hear these cases so much in my friends or from my relatives, like someone they know have cancer or someone they know is deaf and their mother is also deaf. How can I deal with this problem?
So again, cancer is widespread in almost it's in every country in the whole world, and there's certain determinants again that puts you at risk. UV radiation puts you at risk for skin cancer, and there are various other types of cancer that you can be at risk for. There are preventative efforts that we didn't get into today, but feel free to reach out to me on Slack, and I can provide some resources on cancer prevention and attacking that through a public health lens. But with cancer, as you read in the case study, if you look at it, access to certain screenings, such as pap smears for cervical cancer, and screenings that go beyond just one time in your life, and you be able to screen during recommended intervals in your life, to make sure that you don't have those certain types of cancer, is very important. And when people don't have access to the healthcare and aren't able to communicate and get appointments, it can lead to certain cancers going undiagnosed for a while, and that can put you at risk. And that can be very dangerous. So I think if you have more questions on cancer prevention and maybe some policies, I have a couple in mind that I've read. Feel free to just reach out to me on Slack. But let's focus on this case study that we looked at for homework if you had time.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm very sorry if I interrupted.
Yeah. No worries. Dina, did you want to kind of overview the case study for everyone?
Sure. Okay, can you listen to me?
Yeah, yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Can I ask first a question? Do we have an assignment or something?
No, there was no assignment. I just asked if you wanted to read the case study that you could, and then we'll have some questions that we'll talk through about the topic. But if you haven't read it, no worries. We can.
Yeah, I read it.
Okay, if you wanted to provide some of your key takeaways for the audience to hear, that would be amazing.
Sure. You want me to read the summary or say it from my mind?
Yeah, just what were some takeaways that you had from reading the summary, from reading the study?
Okay, so it was talking about cancer care.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. And Guatemala, I think it's pronounced like that.
Guatemala, yeah.
Okay. So, and it also is talking about analyze. Can you listen to me?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's talking about free healthcare provided by the public health system, which helps people.
Yeah, great. So it talked about the public health system, but it also talked about a lot of the disparities within the Guatemalan healthcare system and how language was a barrier for a lot of indigenous women to seek care. Another really important piece of information that I read that I thought was very important, there was a lot of, large general hospitals in the capital city, and access for women to get to these spaces was very difficult. So that's a cultural barrier. That's a transportational barrier, but there's a cultural barrier in terms of language, and effective communication with healthcare providers, and pretty much the racial discrimination against these women who aren't, treated well because of their heritage and where they come from. So yeah, that I think it was very important. And if you read Dawn Mayra's story, she talked about how she had to, it was very hard for her to escape poverty, and how her experience with illness was very hard because no one would, it was a very long wait time to even get an appointment for her to, get a pap smear. And that when doctors would see that she didn't take the appointment in a certain time duration, they automatically think that she didn't care for her health. But that wasn't the issue. It was that she didn't have access to be able to get those screenings because it was so hard to schedule appointments. And because she wasn't familiar with public transportation, and didn't have the money to go to, these, and especially the money for these screenings, it was hard for her to access care. But then she talked about how she was able to connect with a public health organization known as Waka Kwak. It's from the Maya Health Alliance, that was able to provide her with some, translational services, as well as provide her a care navigator that was able to kind of help her navigate care, and how that really impacted her. And yeah, That was really important. We'll end off with one more question because I know timed. But what let me see what question I'm going to answer. Oh, let me see. Let me end. I want to end the question. I am okay. What role do you think I'll ask this question to everyone. Feel free to use the chat. What role do you think language barriers play in the communication between Indigenous women and healthcare providers? And how do you think this barrier affects delivery of care? So even if it's not related to the case study, how do you think language might play a role in access to care and delivery of care, and how that impacts public health systems? I think I'll Viance, you have your hand up. Do you want to speak on that?
Me?
Yes. How do you think
Okay.
it might impact access to healthcare?
Okay. Well, the thing is that if you don't know how to communicate, then how are you going to educate these people? So that I believe that was like the main issue for Doña Mayra, because she spoke if I'm not wrong, a dialect that was Cachecuel. And the thing is that she didn't speak Spanish, and in Guatemala the main language is Spanish. And so whenever she went to her appointments, she struggled basically because she couldn't understand, and what she did understand was like very little. And basically that was like the main thing. But thankfully, right, she got help from this organization that you told us, and basically like that's it.
Yeah, exactly. That shows how access to different nonprofit organizations are able to provide the care that is the gaps in care and fill those gaps in care. So feel free to continue your discussion on Slack. But I know it is time, and I want to do a poll. I want to make sure that it's before we end today's call. Give me 1 second.
Before we end, I want to thank you for your presentation and information about public health. Have a nice day.
Give it 1 second. We're going to launch the poll. One second. Okay, I am launching the poll. It should launch. Okay, let's launch. Okay. And then I'll stick around for around a couple minutes to answer any remaining questions. But yeah, if you don't have any questions, after you've answered the poll, feel free to hop off the call, and we will see you on Friday. Stick around if you have any questions. We're here at Slack to help. We'll share all the resources and presentations to you guys after. But again, there's a lot of topics I discussed, and I wanted to make sure I got in a very comprehensive overview of public health today. But if you have questions, feel free to reach out. I would love to interact and help you as you understand your public health journey. But yeah.
So I answered the poll. Should I leave?
Yeah, feel free to hop on after.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
Like, I want to give us some opinions.
Yes.
So, like, in my country, I'm from Bangladesh. So, public health, like, it became a top priority in my country. Like, there are health resources, and then there are medical staffs who provide provide free for the people who are from low income families.
Yeah.
And like, but still, even if the medical staffs, like, even if the hospitals are evolving, I feel like there isn't like too many awareness issues. Like, people are not really aware of why they are getting diseases, why cardiovascular diseases are happening. And I mean, there are doctors who just don't want to interact and just assign them the medicines and just tell that you have and just tell them that these are the medicines you have to just take for reducing the disease. But I feel like there are some doctors who don't just say that how to like fully be aware of it and how to get rid of it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's not fully removable, but I feel like even if they can, like the people from the younger society or newer generations who can actually like spread these messages, like I have been taking this issue in my hand. Like I have been contacting a lot of NGOs to help raise awareness of it. I mean, I'm been like writing a lot of posts and a lot of letters and everything to the doctors, like especially the doctors in my country, to like please help people who are not aware, like because not a lot of people are like educated, and even if they're educated, even if they're not educated, they don't know that their reasons for getting this disease, and they are not aware. So like I'm like trying to reach, and I think teenagers also need to like take an action. Like there are a lot of kids who are like getting affected by cardiovascular disease these days, because now in this era, like everyone is like smoking and like vaping, and I think they are just thinking it's just for aesthetic, or it's just because it's trendy. But I feel like they're like really turning away from the truth that this is really dangerous for our health. So like I think everyone should just
I totally agree. I think there's a problem in access delivery healthcare, but there's also a lack of training within our medical professionals to understand this disease. The medical model has always been treating disease, and it's
and like there are a lot of staffs who just don't understand. Like they just treat patients, but they don't know like why they're treating them, and like
why I think again public health education is extremely important. If you're able to understand these factors and be able to make change in small ways, it can really impact a lot of people. We didn't get to it today. I didn't have time to introduce it, but the next step from learning this topic is introducing kind of our global health initiative. We're going to get into it again, not today, because we'll talk about it soon, but it's where you'll be able to, take some of the language and some of the knowledge that you learned in today's lecture and try and and make small changes within your own community. So feel free to reach out if you have questions about this, but we'll introduce this probably later next week when we have a little more time, because couldn't introduce it today because time went like this. So yeah. Thank you for taking initiative already in your own country. I think even one person, it goes a long way. So yeah, thank you for doing that. I will move on to the next. So again, the session has ended for anyone who doesn't really officially end the session, but if you want to stick around and ask questions, I'll be around probably for another 10 minutes to answer any questions. Dina?
I'm sorry for interrupting, but is there any assignment or quizzes in this session?
Nope, there is no. We have no quizzes, no nothing like that today. Today was more just like lecture and yeah.
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
It's somehow out of the topic, but okay, so in Egypt, there's no many scholarship things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's common more for like college, university, thing like that, but for high schoolers, there's no. So I'd like to ask if here in the workshop you could offer talk about how to get accepted in a scholarship or things like that.
So we'll have a workshop next week that diving into navigating pre-health opportunities as well as scholarships and all that stuff. So we'll have a workshop, I believe, next Friday. That is when it's planned. But if you're applying to college and you're looking for scholarships, our alumni community has been accepted into some very prestigious programs. I believe some of our programs were accepted into like the Yale Young Global Scholars programs and other programs as well. So if you want to reach out on Slack, I can connect you with those alumni who could maybe help you a little more on understanding like how you can apply to those programs yourself.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
What happened after the pre-medicine?
So after you finish pre-medical education, I think this is pretty much standard. So, in like the United Kingdom and other Australia, like after you finish high school, you can be directly admitted into a medical college. Here, it's a little in the United States, it's a little different just because you have to complete 4 years of an undergraduate degree, and that can be really in anything. So that's what people call as pre-med. There's requirements that you have to complete. So I think, like for me, it's like 2 biology classes, a genetics course, 2 physics course, 2 OChem courses, a biochemistry course, some English courses, and all sorts of other like certain courses that you have to take. But other than that, you can make any major really pre-medical if you really desire to. So again, if you have questions on navigating that process, we can definitely connect on Slack.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, I have a question.
Yeah.
What did you say about the Yale Scholars Program? Can you repeat that part?
Yeah, so we have some alumni that, again, if you reach out to Slack, we can connect you with. There's a program, I believe it's like called the Yale Young Global Scholars, which some of our alumni have been admitted to and have completed the program. So if you we can send in resources on applying to those programs in our opportunities channel later next week, but we'll provide you with some opportunities on how you can leverage this community to navigate further opportunities. So just stay connected on Slack and active, and we'll be sharing a lot of opportunities hopefully soon.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yes.
Yes.
First, I wanna thank you for your time, and I wanna ask about the shadowing program.
Yeah.
Should I pass any exam to get it, or just
No.
complete the program?
Just complete the program, and then we'll have an end of session program form. And once you've completed those, you're pretty much guaranteed. If you attended the sessions, made sure you answered the polls, and if you didn't, texted DM'd Rorik. And if you complete our post-program session form, yeah, you pretty much will be able to get those guaranteed. Not if you accurately complete the program, you are able to get those shadowing hours and post-program certification. Yes, but it has to be like you have to be attending live and be able, and yeah, it's attending the live sessions.
Yes, thank you.
Of course. Any other?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I'm a bit confused between the difference about the differences between epidemic and endemic and pandemic.
Okay, so once I share my slideshow, I think it'll be helpful if you want to, and we also have it translated if needed. But so it's just pretty, instead of getting into the specific details for each certain term, all it kind of relates to is how far a disease has spread, how many people it's reached, and if it's at a global scale, a local scale, or a population scale. That's pretty much the main differences between the three. So like endemic would be like a disease that's present pretty much, like it's not normal, but like it's really active, and it's present in the population, like malaria. And those viruses are very common in sub-Saharan Africa. There's a lot of preventative efforts, but it's kind of constrained to that area. Same thing with epidemic. It's more of like when there's more cases than expected. And then a pandemic is when it's over a large population. Like COVID-19 was a pandemic. It affected almost every country in the world. So that would be a pandemic. If you need more examples, feel free to get on Slack. I can provide more resources.
Okay. Have another question.
Yes.
From your point of view, what do you think what would be the best way in order to benefit from this program?
So I think what I believe that you should do, and I think what I did when I was a participant a couple years ago is I was very engaged with the community. I made sure I attended the sessions, and I also made sure I finished the Google form to make sure I got a certification. And I also just was active within the community. So I asked questions. I engaged in the community on our Slack. Those are just ways to make sure so we can see who you are. We love to get to know people. So that's what I would recommend. But you're doing a great job right now, even asking questions and staying after the sessions. It really shows that you're really dedicated to the program. So yeah, thank you.
Welcome. Thanks.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, for sure.
Do high school students in the USA go for volunteer programs in such as hospitals? And do they benefit in further pre-med or medical school?
So a lot of programs in the United States, pre-med students and high school students, they engage in volunteer work. Okay, a lot of misconception that a lot of students have is that you have to have hospital volunteering, you have to be like a lot of what medical schools want to see, from what I've heard from various guest speakers at this point, is they want to see you make impact within what you're passionate about. So for instance, if you're passionate about healthcare access, participating in in our global health initiative, which is coming soon, or starting your own organization in a way that it really impacts people, or writing blog posts about what you're passionate for. Passion shows, and even though someone might have 300 hours of volunteering shadowing at a hospital, you can cut that time if you do something that you're very passionate about. Hospital volunteering is a very passive activity. You're just doing it to get kind of it checked off at the end of the day. But if you do something that you're passionate about, how you speak about it will tell. And like Aisha was saying earlier, she was very passionate about public health and epidemiology and being a caseworker, and that's what she did. And she was able to show her passion for it through her texts and her interviews. If you're doing something just to do it, it's very easy to see when you write about it and when you interview, when you get asked questions about it during an interview. So I say stick to what you're passionate about. Even if it's not medical related, that's also okay. You can still get into medical school if you are like, for instance, wanting to, be the best at dancing in your community or host private dance lessons or something like that. Like you can do a wide range of activities and skills, and it doesn't have to be 100% medical. But yeah, if you have any questions,
Yeah,
again,
okay, got it. Thank you.
feel free to reach out on Slack. I'll take 2 more questions before I end the call, and we'll be available through Slack if you need any other questions. But yeah.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, it's a kind of general questions, not a specific about public health.
Yeah.
It's about the autoimmune diseases. It's
what
not curable. The autoimmune diseases.
Autoimmune diseases? I don't think
Yes.
Let me see.
It's not curable. And my question is how to prevent them, even they are not curable.
If a disease is not curable, like for instance, HIV and AIDS, well, you can prevent it and you can take medications to lessen its impact. If you don't take medication, eventually you'll become classified as AIDS based on your blood count. It will show you the numbers. But how I would go about preventing disease that is uncurable is, if it's preventable in all aspects, do it. Like for instance, if there are different I'm trying to think. It's a good question. Diseases that are honestly it depends. We didn't talk about this, but communicable versus non-communicable diseases are also very important. So non-communicable diseases are diseases that are communicated via like it's like heart disease. It's something that it's not spread through like bodily fluid or something, compared to communicable diseases like HIV and AIDS. They have different prevention / approach strategies.
No, the autoimmune diseases,
autoimmune diseases. So
yes,
I would say a lot of autoimmune diseases like HIV and AIDS it's a deficiency of autoimmune as well. Prevention efforts again include being able to being able to be really caught up on the different preventative aspects for it. Again, if you send me a Slack message, I probably can give you a better answer for the specific disease that you're talking about. But
okay, let's say rheumatoid arthritis. It's the reason of it isn't known, and not curable. So it's so painful disease also.
So a lot of those diseases that are non-communicable diseases, rheumatoid arthritis, there are various exercises you can do, and there's medications that you can take, which I believe for rheumatoid arthritis, there are medications that they're very expensive and hard to access. So if you work with policymakers to, provide, easily accessible for those diseases. But again, some diseases like it's hard to avoid. Like in rheumatoid arthritis, it happens with old age. So those again, if you take care of your overall health, those are likely to be prevented. But again, as you age, some diseases are easily contract. You're at a higher likelihood of getting the disease. So again, I can send you some resources that I have, but other than that, do you have any other questions?
No, thanks.
Okay.
I want to ask a question.
Yes.
If the pre-med is optional or not about the medical school? Should I take a pre-med course?
Yes. If you come to the US, pre-medical education is practically like you have to do it. There are combined programs, which we'll talk about, I think later next week. It's called B.S. M.D., which is pretty much combines both your bachelor and medical degree together. So
Yes.
you do both of them together, which again also is really, really competitive, but it's an option as well. But you won't like pre-medical education in the US, Canada, they're pretty like you have to you have to do those educations before you are able to apply to medical school. It's kind of like mandatory.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take one more question.
May I ask a question, please?
Yes.
What is shadowing?
So shadowing is whenever you partake in an activity to, like, under a healthcare professional, you shadow them or you like view their day in life. For instance, it could be you spend a day with a medical doctor and you round them in cases, or you observe a surgery. Shadowing is just like seeing the healthcare field and just being able to witness and experience it with a doctor. It's not too I think it is pretty complicated to get depending on if you're a high school student or college student, but we do have some resources that we could share if you want like a template to share to ask doctors for you to shadow them. But I say shadowing is a very passive activity. You're just doing it again to see if you like want to enter a field or something. It's really passive. So I would say that it's something that if you're looking for a medical doctor and you're not able to get them you're not able to get opportunities right away, it's not something you should stress about. And most of the time, if you reach out to like at least like I think I reached out to 20 or 30 people when I was looking for opportunities, and 5 or 6 of them responded. So it just depends again on their availability, your time frame, and all the scheduling that goes behind it. But if you have questions on some of the resources that we have, feel free to let us know and we can send them to you, our templates. But other than that, I'm gonna go ahead and end today's session. I hope if you still have questions, I'm available.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
I'm available through Slack to be able to respond. I'll respond as soon as I can. So yeah, thank you guys so much, and we will